This is your Neepawa Town Council debrief for the March the 1st, 2022 meeting. The debrief will take you through the key issues being discussed by Council and provide a bit more information on what they mean for the town. Council had several items to report at this week's meeting, but most of them went through swiftly with little discussion. We start off with the Council reports, in which our councillors report on any activities that have taken place in their respective committee portfolios over the past 2 weeks. There were several of these this week, including the Planning Board, the Regional Library, and the County Courthouse.
Okay, we're into council reports. Does anybody have a council report tonight?
Well, I guess we had a planning board meeting last night, very eventful, and probably one of our longest ones. But the one thing I'd like to say about the planning board is that it's a very positive group of councillors from the surrounding area that are all working together to keep up with this expansion that our community is doing. And being in other communities in the last couple of weeks, the amount of snow we have is very minimal compared to other places. However, there is a sale on snow. If you check our website, we will give you a whole truckload of snow for $10.99.
Perfect. Thank you, Murray. Yeah, Councilor Little.
Just reporting on the WMRL, the library board that I'm on behalf of the town here. We finalized our budget for 2022, and it was approved for an 80 cents increase per population, right? So it's a levy based on our population. Now the good thing is it's based on our prior census data. So that'll leave us at the 4609. The total increase to the town of Neepawa will be $3,687.
Okay.
I'll forward a copy of the new budget to everybody, just if you're curious to see what everything's being spent on. Something to note there is just the agreement with Brandon. Brandon pays less because they subsidize their levy using their rent. They give back some of the rent. It's a really complicated formula, but after the last 4 years, I've been able to figure it out. And if you have any questions, I can show you. But it's getting more complicated because the city of Brandon is looking to renovate their downtown library. And what they're doing is they're taking, a portion of the floor space away, which should result in a reduction in rent. But they're also giving up other parts of the building, such as the basement storage, to their archives, which is again going to reduce the rent, I would expect. I always keep reminding them that, this levy that is, well beyond ours, them paying $9.80 and us paying $12, definitely, we want to make sure that everyone's paying a fair share for sure.
That makes sense.
So, as we're preparing for our budgeting, that's something for us to look at, a small increase to our library services. But in the end, we know it's well worth it for the services we're getting.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Anybody else with a council report?
Yes, the county courthouse met on Friday. We didn't have enough members of councils to actually make a quorum, but we did have some architects out to do some early conversations with the courthouse, how we can maybe look at better usability of the building, and we can look at potentially improving accessibility to the facility. We've got an underutilized facility that is obviously a net cost to the town as of right now. There's not a lot of return back to the community except its curb appeal. So we're trying to look at ways in which we can get some more revenue out of that, as well as, like I said, just improve the functionality of that building. So early stages, but on Friday we started. I guess that's the first part.
So you got to start someplace.
Yeah.
No, that's good. Thank you.
Just an announcement or a request. The Neepawa Fire Department is looking at adding volunteer firefighters. So if you are interested in something like that, if you live within 5 kilometers of Neepawa, over the age of 18, if you're physically able to participate, you have a clear criminal records check, valid driver's license, you can attend 2 practices a month, attend at least 50% of the calls. If you're supported by your family to be a firefighter or by local business that you're involved with, you get to operate out of a brand new fire hall, soon to be able to ride around in a new fire truck. So if you're interested in something like that, we have applications at the town office here.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
And 50%, if you take 50% of those calls, on average, Neepawa is just over 70 calls a year, so that would be 35 calls a year as far as a commitment in terms of service, so.
They're mostly alarms.
Most of them are alarms, yes. So if you're wondering what that commitment looks like, yes.
Councilor Kosmachuk.
Yes, yesterday we met via Zoom with the Handy Transit Program. We had the interview, the town had the interview with the review board that is doing our handy van review, and it went really well. They asked some great questions. It's a program that's really looking at sustainability and the function, and they're just trying to make it better and look at the usage, how they can improve it, and it's going for quite well. Yeah, it was a good meeting.
Yeah, I was part of that too. Yeah, no, it was a good meeting. Yeah, you're right. You asked lots of good questions, and they're working their way through all the municipalities and ourselves. And
No, that's good. Okay, that's it for our council reports.
Manager of Operations Denise Sakay had nothing new on the docket for this week, but he did update council on 2 ongoing projects. As we know, snow has been a major consideration all winter, even more so in our adjacent municipalities as it has been inside Neepawa. Town staff has finally had a chance to scrape down the main thoroughfares fully and are working on widening the residential streets. While the trucks continue to carry riprap to the Park Lake area, Sakay wants to ensure that everyone understands that this material is to prevent erosion, and they are not constructing a barrier with it. The spring melt, which is predicted to cause minor flooding this year depending on the speed of the melt, will continue to flow through the area and not pool in the basin.
Manager of Operations, Denise.
Well, it's been fairly quiet. Short of snow removal, so I did a pretty thorough cleaning of the downtown and all the commercial sector. Contractors have now been working on widening out some of the residential streets. A little more tedious and slow that way just due to cars parked, everything else. So they're picking away at hill zones, and I think we've had the dozer and snow dump site about 5 times now to pile everything up, so it's become quite a mountain there. Other exciting news is that the bridge tender for Park Lake Drive is closing on Monday. So hopefully we'll see some competitive bids on that one. We can see some action on new construction of a new bridge for us there. Get the bird sanctuary. So again, that's closes March 7th. That's everything gone.
so how long after the tender closes do you think they could actually?
No clue there. So once they do the tender close, we'll find out there. We'll find out who successful bid is. We'll go through the competencies, ensure that everyone's compliant within their bids. And at that point, then they'll set up a pre-construction meeting. From there, we'll get a construction schedule they'll have to provide us. They should have provided one within their bid submission. So we'll see the schedule layout within that.
Can you go back to Park Lake for a minute? I just had a couple of people talking to me, and now that there's activity going on down there, and I know we talked about it before, but can you just kind of revisit that, or just tell us like what they're actually doing there right now?
So right now, we're doing the riprap haul. So essentially, they're just pre-hauling all the stone they're going to need as erosion control measures for the interior of the bank once the lake is refilled and rebuilt and all the dikes are redone. They're also hauling in the stone riprap for the bottom side of the weir. So when that's reconstructed, we've got all that stone in place now. So it seems like there's lots going on right now, but it's going to kind of hit pause for a little bit once they finish the stone work. They've hauled 100% of the 350 class rock in, so now they're working on the bigger classes of rocks. We'll see bigger stones starting to come in there. Now we've seen boulders come in. As far as I know, I did an inspection of the tree dump site, so they've completed the tree scrubbing portion of all the banks on site now. So that aspect of the contract is complete, so now we're strictly back into the riprap wall. They completed the installation of the crossing through the bit of a creek we have flowing through there now, so they can access either side of it for control work. And I believe should see, yeah, hopefully this will complete within the month of March for the last of it all to be open.
So that it's gonna sit there, and the water's gonna come in the spring,
Yep.
and it's gonna flow through,
You bet.
and because there's no dam or anything like that, so like, I don't think people maybe quite understood that. It's still gonna be there, and the water's gonna go through, and then.
Yep. Hopefully it doesn't wash out the little approach they built.
Exactly.
Because they are predicting a bit of a flood.
Yeah. So we'll see what kind of mountain looks like.
Okay, that's good.
Can I just compliment the town staff for the work that they did do? I know I've been hassling you about Brown and Maine, but I want to compliment the town staff. We took care of provincial areas of responsibility and made that intersection safe again.
Yeah,
I want to thank the crew for that.
We went and did that, and a few more I'd like to go and get them a tackle, basically the intersection of Mountain Avenue as well. It's
Yes.
a little bit for pedestrians, because there's a big mountain that I climb over now, and that whole zone just keeps getting filled up every time, so.
Absolutely, but the guys, the crew, they did a fantastic job, and it's made a night and day difference in that area of town.
Good.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, thank you, Denise.
This year saw a budget surplus of $1.73 million, partly due to the expansion of the town and increase in the tax base, and partly due to pandemic-related closures such as the pool and campground. This has been an unusual year in that respect, so Council now decides into which reserves to transfer that surplus.
So this is an exciting time of the year when we finally, so you're going to pass your year-end statement, the next document. I'm doing this one first because some of the things that occurred in the statement, this has to be approved first because we actually had surplus. So it was lovely. I'm just going to read you a summary of what occurred for the 2021 year in general operating fund and utility operating fund. So the Municipal Act requires that a municipality file not later than March 15th in each year financial statements for the preceding year. So we've wrapped that up now. In respect to this time frame, we finalized them. They will take into account some recommendations for transferring the identified surpluses into reserves so that we can use them again in the 2022 budget and for future projects. So we had an unusual year. The general operating surplus is $1.73 million. It was identified for the year ended December 31st, 2021. In summary, we wouldn't normally have surplus. If you take, the points I'm going to read to you next, if you take those out of the equation, because those were anomalies that occurred to us, we actually balanced our budget for this year. So the things that made up that 1.7 million were increased revenue of $791,000 due to unanticipated land sales. So at the beginning of 2021, when we built the budget, we never foreseen we would sell all the property that we sold on the CN land. Were we hoping? Absolutely, but you cannot plug that into the budget thinking it's going to happen when you don't know. So we were very cautious of how we budgeted that. We had increased revenue of $247,000 for the addition of taxes linked to development and growth. So when you set your budget every year, you use the information provided by the Manitoba Assessment Branch. At that time, the numbers they gave us did not include new construction and new builds that come on your tax base in September of every given year through the supplemental assessment. So we were very fortunate to come up with $250,000 when those supplements came through in September. We had decreased expenses amounting to roughly $568,481 as a result of the timing of projects and the inability of contractors to start or complete projects in 2021. So things like the paving and the road work, the sidewalks, the drainage. Just to be clear though, those monies, even though they're forming part of that surplus, are going into reserve to be brought back in as a transfer into the 2020 budget so that we don't levy those projects again on the taxpayer. So it'll just be a wash into this budget. And then we also had a varying degree of decreased expenses and revenues related to effects of the pandemic. You know, less revenue at the campground, maybe a little less revenue at the swimming pool, expenditures for maybe supplies. So rather than list, 24 items, it was just, a little bit of offsets within the budget. In the utility operating side, we have a surplus of roughly $205,449.79. And this was mostly attributed to the increased water and sewer sales because of our developments, an increase in service connections because of our developments, we charge for those, and basically how we managed through the pandemic. So there were things that, you know, we didn't maybe spend in certain areas as well. So we were very fortunate. I would suggest as well that surplus in the utility reserve is also linked to the sales in the general operating side, because when we built the price of selling the land and the properties in the CN development, we built in a component for providing water and sewer infrastructure. So by doing that, we took some of those monies and put it back into the utility budget to make sure that we could pay for those additional expenses as it came forward. So very, very fortunate to have the surpluses that we have for this year. So we are recommending, based on knowing what we need to spend for projects or protection for our future coming up, we are recommending from the general operating fund, we put basically 1.1 million into the building and land reserve. From the general operating fund into the general reserve, 627,000, and into the utility operating fund, the utility operating reserve for water, 200 to 205,000 from utilities. So if you're in agreement with those transfers, we would like a resolution to make that final into our year-end statements.
Any questions, any comments? Okay, we'll move forward with that resolution. Moved by Councilor Gerard, seconded by Councilor Constantine. Be it resolved that we approve the transfer of the unaudited general operating fund and utility operating fund surpluses for the year ending December 31st, 2021 into the following reserve accounts. $1,103,012.01 from the general operating fund to the building and land reserve. $627,000, $689 from the general operating fund to the general reserve, and $205,449.79 from the utility operating fund to the utility water reserve. All in favor? Carried.
The town has received a request to subdivide a commercial lot to allow for the construction of a multi-unit residential building. This is the type of project that we've seen a lot of in recent years, but the location of this one is of note, as it is in Neepawa's downtown core, adding more residential units to that area while not sacrificing the storefront space on Mountain Avenue.
So this is a proposal to subdivide part of the northeast 281415 and within the southeast 331415, lot 17 to 24, both inclusive, block 118, plan 256. The applicant, Owen Reimer, proposes to split an existing commercial lot with the intention to add, and the document says a commercial use for the remaining lot. That's incorrect, actually, and we've already clarified that. To add a multi-residential unit to the newly created lot. So for clarification, this is the Red Apple property. They want to split off the Red Apple into the commercial central. The remaining portion of the lot, which is also commercial central, will require a conditional use to allow for a multi-residential unit there. This application is consistent with the development plan and meets the provincial criteria for a minor subdivision, which enables it to be given conditional approval without requiring an interdepartmental circulation or planning report. Community Planning has issued the conditional approval for the subdivision application as per section 125(1) of the Planning Act. The applicant must obtain municipal approval prior to completing the other conditions of the subdivision. So once we've dealt with this, we will forward our information and the conditions that we've required on this property. A little bit of information has come forward. The standard stuff applies as far as easements and plan of survey to be attached to it. The only other thing that came into play here, because this is pretty straightforward, is the fact that we will require the conditional use application, which was not on the community and regional planning document, so I have that as part of your resolution. I also have stated out there we would enter into development agreement to identify things that we want to have achieved as this development goes forward, which would also include the ability to connect to our water and sewer, line it up with Mill Street for part of that project that's going to be ongoing there under basically the guidance of our bylaw for charging rates for $16,000 for water connections and $5,000 for the sewer, plus a certain amount per door. So we're looking for approval of the subdivision based on the criteria we've listed on your resolution, which you'll have in front of you. And if there are other conditions you would like to attach, we would put those in a development agreement.
Yeah.
I just have one question, just because it is in our commercial district, and when we are approving buildings, especially when we start talking for housing in that sitting district, We're obviously gonna have the parking requirements associated with that. Is there any expectation of some frontage of retail space because it is in that commercial district, or is that gonna be okay because of the fact that the Red Apple is in front of it?
Yes, so when you're talking 50% commercial base on your front, that's fronting on your street,
Okay.
basically. So because this would be to the, you're looking at Red Apple, it's going to be actually onto the backside of the property there. There is no requirement for the 50% commercial frontage.
Great, just want to make sure that we're covered off on that.
And of course, if they get to the point after this is subdivided and they know what they're going to build, they need side variances for any particular reason, or they need to modify the parking. The limited information we have at this point, should they move forward, I think they just want to split the lot for now. It would be such that they would have to come for variances should they require anything outside zoning bylaws.
Great, thanks.
So if they wanted to move forward this year, Denise, there would be no problems with the water and sewer?
No, we've been, Jeff and I have both been in discussion with them for, close to a year now, I guess.
Right.
So glad to see that the subdivision process is going through right now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, if there's nothing else, we will move forward with this resolution. Moved by Councilor Liddell. Seconded by Councilor Costa. Be it resolved that we approve subdivision 4437-228376 of Owen Reimer on behalf of 10031-344 Manitoba Inc. to subdivide lot 17 to 24, inclusive block 118, plan 256, in northeast 28 and southeast 33-14-15W to allow for the splitting off of an existing commercial lot with the intention of repurposing the new lot for multi-residential use. Be it further resolved that this approval be subject to a conditional use order allowing for the construction of a multi-resident unit in the commercial central zone and a development agreement which shall outline applicable requirements, including the servicing of the new lot with water and sewer to the property line under the terms of the bylaw 3204-21 at the base cost of $21,000, plus an amount of $2,250 for every additional door to be constructed as a separate dwelling unit. All in favor? Carried.
And finally, the town is required to pass a bylaw relating to the upcoming municipal election to ensure that candidates do not use municipal resources for an advantage in the election. This has never been a problem in Neepawa, but towns and municipalities across the province are being asked to pass this specific bylaw to ensure it's on the books at least 180 days before the next municipal election, which is in October.
Okay, we are now into management resources in an election, municipal resources in an election, Colleen.
So this is a new bylaw for every municipality in Manitoba. Basically, the Municipal Act added section 93:18.1 and subsection 1. It talks about basically restrictions during a municipal election when you're looking at municipal resources. We have to pass this bylaw 180 days before the next general election, which will be on October 26th, so we're passing it in good time. It restricts the use of municipal resources during the 42-day period before any by-election or any general election. So this bylaw, the Department of Municipal Relations, through various things that are occurring in municipalities across the province, has deemed it reasonable to ask municipalities to support these types of bylaws in their municipalities, to make sure that people who are running as candidates in elections are not using the advantage of any type of municipal resource for the purposes of positioning themselves in election. I wouldn't suggest this quite often happens with candidates who are not a current incumbent on council, but definitely, and it has never happened here to my knowledge, but you can't use the logo, you can't use re-elect Mayor McCutcheon, for example. You can say re-elect Blake McCutcheon for mayor. It's all about how you word things and not using something that everybody doesn't have access to. So in that 40-day period, there are definite restrictions about, you run your own kind of thing, run your own campaign without any input or, assistance of anything that's municipal. So this will be first reading.
Okay, Councilor Gerard. Oh, just go ahead. Sorry, moved by Councilor Gerard, seconded by Councilor Pablo. Be it resolved that bylaw number 3212-22 being a bylaw of the town of Neepawa to establish rules and procedures for the use of the municipal resources in any election be now read for the first time. All in favor? Carried.
Other items included an MPI claim for the use of the town firefighting resources, the regular financial report, the purchase of a new snowblower attachment, and the passing of the Capital Assets Bylaw, which was covered on our previous episode.
That's the only thing I thought maybe I'd just talk about, saying because we are an elected council and we do live in a democratic province and country, I thought it would be nice just to say, you know, we see what's going on in Ukraine, and I think it just reminds us that, you know, today is, when, you know, vaccine mandates were, the passport was, you know, done today, and we're going to do the masks in 2 weeks, and I know there's people on all sides there, but I mean, I think it just reminds us that we still have the democracy that allows us to make these decisions freely, and, you know, we can, yeah, you can be in the minority, you can be in the majority, and we're allowed to do that because of the country we live in. So I just think it's just so sad what's going on over there, and how fortunate we are, and how much I think we should be thinking about them, and hopefully that there will be a resolution there at some point. That's my comment. If there's nothing else, we will.
We do have Neepawa residents who have come directly from the Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we have a big community of Ukrainian people here. You're correct.
You can view end-to-end coverage of the Town Council meeting elsewhere in the NACTV schedule, including immediately following this program. We welcome your feedback on this program, and if you have questions or items that you'd like to see clarified or discussed, you can reach us at 204-476-2639 or by email at nactvnews@gmail.com. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you next time.